Yo, what is up guys? It's Pedro here, and in today's video I'm going to be predicting which wide receivers I think will make the Redskins roster, any surprise cuts, and I'm also going to be talking about some veteran wide receivers that I think Washington should sign to beef up the wide receiver core after Kelvin Harmon went down with the injury and after Cody Latimer was placed on the commissioner's exempt list, and I'm going to be going through some potential training camp battles with the wide receiver position. So if you guys are new, subscribe for Redskins and NFL content. So let's get into the video. So before all these injuries happen and all this off the field issues happen, we actually thought this position had a lot of talent, and it still does. But after Kelvin Harmon went down with his injury and Cody Latimer was placed on the commissioner's exempt list, it is looking a little bit thin. So that's why I do think we should sign a veteran wide receiver. But we'll get into that later. So first off, obviously, Terry McLaurin will make the Redskins roster, and he's going to be the number one wide receiver, and I think he's going to pick up right where he left off last year. If you look at his stats, he had about 919 yards last. He had 919 yards last year in 14 games, and if you think about it, and 7 touchdowns. He had three different quarterbacks. He was playing with Colt McCoy, Case Keenum, and Dwayne Haskins. And as a rookie, when you play with three different quarterbacks, that is just not good for you. Throwing with three different quarterbacks, it's not good for any player, especially rookies, and it just wasn't good quarterback play all the way around. It was starting to get better with Dwayne Haskins at the end of the season, but that was only a small portion of the game. So I think with better quarterback play this year, and most importantly, consistent quarterback play, I think Terry McLaurin will make the Pro Bowl this year, and I think he's going to get well over 1,000 yards, maybe 1,100, maybe 1,200, and about around 7, 8 touchdowns, just like he did this year. I'm looking for a big year from him if he can stay healthy, and I do think he will stay healthy. That's an obvious one right there. So the next player is Steven Sims, and Steven Sims has a boatload of talent. And sorry about these ads right here, but Steven Sims has a boatload of talent. And if you just look at the stats, 310 yards, all that stuff. That's not super impressive for touchdowns, but he did that in very limited amount of time. All of that was in. He really only had more than 5 targets in the last 4 games, and in those 4 games, he had about over 200 yards, and on pace for if he produced that for the whole season, about 910 yards. So I think with more targets this year, and with us actually game planning for him in the offense, I think he can have a big year this year, especially now that Kelvin Harmon went down. I think even though they don't play the same position on the wide receiver core, Steven Sims plays more in the slot and Kelvin Harmon plays on the outside. He is going to get more targets because of that, and I think he's going to get around 700, 800 yards. We'll see. He has the potential to get 1,000 yards. I really do think he can be that type of player. He's a good red zone threat. Had 4 touchdowns last year in very limited amount of playing time, especially at the wide receiver spot. So I think he could have a very good impact this year, and I think he's going to help Dwayne Haskins out a lot. So there's the two most obvious ones, and the next one, very obvious again, Antonio Gandy-Golden. He's going to make the roster, and before he was going to have to battle it out with Kelvin Harmon to start, but I think now, unless we do sign our veteran wide receiver, at least for now, he will most likely be the starting outside wide receiver at Liberty in 2019 at about 1,400 yards, 17.7 yards per catch, and 10 touchdowns. So played absolutely amazing at Liberty and was an absolute beast. And I think he's been working with Dwayne, and I think he can be a pretty solid wide receiver for us. I'm not sure about his production in his rookie year just because he is coming from a small time school and in a limited off season where there was no rookie mini camps or OTAs and no preseason, so it might take him a while to get started, but I think eventually he can get us some production. It all depends on if we do sign a veteran wide receiver, because if we don't, he might start off struggling, but he might end up the season with 650, like around that. But if we do sign a veteran wide receiver like a Josh Gordon or someone that starts over Antonio Gandy-Golden, maybe he puts about 450 to 500 yards. That's my take on it, and I think he can be a very good red zone threat. He goes up for it and is very, very elite. So those are the only three surefire guys to make the team unless they do get hurt. So those guys will make the team. Now onto the bubble players. So the first guy that I think the most likely to make the team out of these next few guys is Isaiah Wright, because, and this is crazy to say since he's an undrafted free agent, but I think initially they really wanted to use him as a special teams guy, kick returner, punt returner, and gunner. But now, honestly, if he shows out in training camp, I do think he's going to make the team, and I think he's going to get some time as a wide receiver and maybe even go on some jet sweeps and get some rushes. I think he's going to be a utility player, and I think they're going to use him a lot. I really do like his potential. Again, another small-time school in Temple, but I do like what he can do, and I think he's going to make the team just based off his special teams ability, just based on his special teams ability. And now that all these injuries are happening, he doesn't have to go compete with Emmanuel Hall. He doesn't have to compete with Kelvin Harmon or most likely Cody Latimer. So he's going to most likely make the roster right now. And yeah, so those are really the four right there that I think will 75-80% chance make the roster. Steven Sims, all those guys, the first three guys I said, they have like 99.9%. Isaiah Wright, though, he's kind of like 70%. And then the next few guys are kind of bubble guys, but what I do want to say is I do think they will sign a veteran wide receiver, and I do think that's where the last wide receiver spot's going to go to. They might take 6, so that's why I'm going to through these next guys, but I think they're going to keep 5, and it'll be Terry McLaurin, Steven Sims, Antonio Gandy Golden, Isaiah Wright, and wide receiver X. We'll talk about who wide receiver X could be in the next few minutes. So, next guy who's on the bubble, Trey Quinn. I thought like a month ago he had virtually no chance of making the team, but now that Kelvin Harmon went down and Emmanuel Hall and Cody Latimer are all out of the equation, he does have a chance to make the team. Had about 200 yards last year, 1 touchdown. He has the familiarity with Dwayne Haskins and this organization, so that gives him a little bit of an edge. But again, Ron Rivera did not bring him in, so that gives him a little bit of a disadvantage. So it kind of evens out. He really hasn't balled out at all, and he's just super slow. He drops a lot of passes too, especially last year. So, he could make the team if he balls out in training camp, but I honestly don't see it. He doesn't have elite potential, and some of the other guys on our roster could have a lot more potential than him. So the next guy is Cam Sims. I do think, even though his production is a lot less than Trey Quinn's and these other guys, I do think he has a better shot just based on his potential alone. Going into last season, a lot of people thought this guy was going to be one of our top receivers. It was just like, it wasn't even a question of if he's going to make the team, it's how many yards he's going to get. That's what a lot of people were saying, and he ended up getting cut because Steven Sims balled out in that Ravens game and Cam Sims dropped a few passes. So I do think Cam Sims has good potential. He's about 6'5", 215 pounds. Some people are saying to play him at tight end, but his height, 6'5", is tall enough to play tight end, obviously, but 215 pounds is way too little. You got to get to at least 240 initially. Maybe he did put that weight on in the offseason. We don't know. We won't know until training camp, until we get to see training camp. But I don't know. Cam Sims, he does have a lot of potential. And I honestly think now, after all these injuries, he has a solid shot of making the roster. And again, this is going to be his last chance, though. Last year, it really didn't do anything. 3 targets, 2 catches for 27 yards. We'll see what he does, though. So now on to some possible veteran wide receivers that we could sign. So Josh Gordon is the most obvious, and Ron Rivera actually did say that the wide receiver is, if he was worried about one position, it would be wide receiver depth. So this is the best wide receiver on the market. Considering Antonio Brown, he is way better than Josh Gordon, but he is going to probably be on the commissioner's exempt list and possibly gonna get suspended. Josh Gordon just has to apply for reinstatement, and then he's going to be back in the league. And you look at 2013, had 1,646 yards with Scott Turner as his offensive coordinator, or as his wide receiver coach. So, and I'm not saying we need 1,600 yards. We just need a solid veteran wide receiver who can start. And I think Josh Gordon can do that. Get about 500, 600 yards for us in his first year here. And I think he can help out develop Antonio Gandy Golden. His body type is very similar, 6'3", 225 pounds. If you look at Antonio Gandy Golden, he is about, let's go look, I think almost exactly the same. 6'4", 225 pounds or 23 pounds. So virtually the same weight and height. So it's good for them. They're both kind of outside receivers. So I think Josh Gordon can help them out a lot. And I think, hey, if Antonio Gandy-Golden starts midway through the season, Josh Gordon can still become a rotational piece and can still produce 500 yards. If you look at his last year, still played pretty good, 440 yards in only 11 games. And yeah, I think he would be a solid player for us. And a couple other names, you got Chris Hogan, who would be okay, but again, he would not be able to start. Demaryius Thomas, Taylor Gabriel, and there's a couple other names. You got Des Bryant, but I just really think we need a veteran wide receiver, even if it's not a big name like Josh Gordon or Antonio Brown, someone that at least is a veteran presence that can help lead our young wide receivers, even someone like Jerry Wright, just someone that can lead our wide receivers. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please smash the like button and keep this in mind. This is a pre-recorded video. I am recording it is July 30th right now. It should be coming out in the next few days. And yes, some training camp battles is just to see who ends up beating out who ends up being on the outside for the wide receiver spot, the second spot, and who makes the roster besides the three players I said, Terry McLaurin, Steven Sims, and Antonio Gandy-Golden. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please smash the like button, and peace.